Virgin was forced to marry a crippled billionaire. He was her first time. Now he won't let go. Hi viewers, don't scroll past this. Your heart led you here for a reason. Beautiful souls, I'm Mr. Daniel, and this isn't just a channel, it's your family. Today's story might be exactly what your soul needed to hear. If you feel the calling, comment, "I'm ready, Mr. Daniel," and let's begin this journey together. Your one comment keeps our family's heartbeat alive. Don't just watch, become part of something greater. She was 21 years old, a virgin, and she had exactly 7 days to let a stranger inside her body, or watch her mother die. The contract was very specific about that. Reverie Thornton stood in the doorway of a billionaire's bedroom, wearing nothing but white silk and the sick feeling that she had made a terrible mistake. The man in the wheelchair hadn't moved since she entered. He sat by the fire, face half in shadow, and she couldn't tell if he was studying her or deciding how to destroy her. They called him the Beast of Mercer Island. He hadn't touched another human being in 3 years. Tonight, he was going to touch her. But what happened in that bedroom? What he whispered against her skin in the dark would shatter everything Reverie thought she knew about monsters and men and the mothers who sell their daughters to save themselves. 7 days earlier, the fluorescent lights at Seattle General Hospital made everything look worse than it already was. Reverie sat across from Dr. Okonkwo in a small consultation room that smelled like hand sanitizer and bad news. The doctor's face held no softness, no false hope, just facts delivered like hammer blows. The cancer has spread. Stage 4. We're past the point of standard treatment options. Reverie's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. There has to be something. There is. Dr. Okonkwo slid a pamphlet across the desk. An experimental treatment program at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. It's shown promising results in cases like your mother's. How much? The pause told her everything. $600,000. It's not covered by any insurance plan I'm aware of. Reverie felt the number land on her chest like concrete. 600,000. She made $11 an hour at the diner, 12 at the hotel on weekends. Without the treatment? 3 months, maybe 4. She walked out of that hospital into Seattle rain and let the water mix with her tears. Nobody could tell the difference. That was the only mercy the city offered her that day. At 11 o'clock that night, Reverie sat on the floor of her Rainier Valley apartment, surrounded by bills, medical paperwork, and the broken pieces of a life she couldn't afford to live. The apartment was small. 2 rooms, water stains on the ceiling, a kitchen that doubled as a hallway. But it was theirs. Hers and her mother's. The only stable ground they'd known in years. She did the math again. 3 jobs, 60 hours a week. At her current rate, she'd need 40 years to save enough for the treatment. Her mother had 4 months. From the bedroom, she heard Delphine's labored breathing, the wheeze that had become the soundtrack of their nights. Her mother was asleep, unaware that a doctor had just stamped an expiration date on her life. Reverie allowed herself exactly 90 seconds to cry. She counted them on the clock above the stove. When the time was up, she wiped her face and started organizing the bills into piles. Past due. Final notice. Collections. It didn't help, but it gave her hands something to do besides shake. The knock came at 11:47 p.m. Not a polite knock, not a neighbor's knock. This was a knock that expected to be answered, that didn't ask permission. 2 men stood in her hallway, wearing suits that cost more than her annual salary. The older one had silver hair and the kind of face that had delivered bad news professionally for decades. The younger one said nothing, just watched her with eyes that had already calculated her net worth and found her wanting. "Miss Thornton?" The silver-haired man didn't wait for confirmation. "I'm Sterling Whitmore, legal counsel for Crane Maritime Holdings. May we come in?" They were inside before she could object, their polished shoes looking obscene against her stained carpet. Whitmore placed a folder on her kitchen table like he was serving a warrant. "Your father, Marcus Thornton, borrowed a significant sum from Crane Maritime 20 years ago to finance a fishing boat venture. The venture failed. The debt did not." Revery's throat tightened. "My father died when I was 12. Debts survive their debtors, Miss Thornton. The current balance, with accrued interest, stands at $400,000. The number hit her like a second diagnosis. "You have 48 hours to remit payment in full. Failure to comply will result in seizure of all family assets, including this residence, any medical equipment currently in use, and garnishment of future wages for a period not to exceed 30 years. Reverie couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "I don't have that kind of money. I don't have any money." Whitmore's expression didn't change. "We're aware of your financial situation, which is why our client has authorized an alternative arrangement." He slid a second folder across the table. Inside, a marriage contract, a medical payment guarantee, and a photograph of a man in a wheelchair. His face was half hidden in shadow, but his eyes burned through the image. Fury and despair twisted together like rope. "Marry Thaddeus Crane. Provide him with an heir within 2 years. In exchange, your mother's debt is forgiven, her medical treatment fully funded, and upon successful delivery, you will receive $10 million with the option to divorce and retain full custody." Revery's eyes found the clause that stopped her heart. Consummation required within 7 days of marriage. Verification by medical examination. Heat flooded her face. She'd never been with a man, not because she was saving herself for something romantic, but because survival left no room for intimacy. Working 3 jobs didn't leave time for dating. Scrubbing hotel bathrooms didn't inspire romantic connections. The younger lawyer noticed her reaction. His lips twitched. She felt stripped naked by that small smile, her inexperience exposed like a wound. "You have 48 hours to decide," Whitmore said, "though I'd recommend acting sooner. Your mother's condition, as I understand it, is quite urgent." She signed at 2 a.m., still wearing the clothes she'd worn to clean toilets that morning. Whitmore collected the papers without a word of comfort, without acknowledgement that he'd just purchased a human being for the price of medical bills and old debt. The next morning, Reverie kissed her sleeping mother's forehead and left without explanation. A black SUV with tinted windows waited outside. She climbed in and watched Seattle shrink behind her as they crossed the floating bridge toward Mercer Island. Through the tinted glass, the Crane mansion emerged from the mist like a cathedral built for ghosts. 40 rooms of stone and shadow, windows that watched like eyes, wings that stretched toward a gray sky that offered no comfort. She signed away her body to save her mother's life. But the man waiting on Mercer Island wasn't anything she expected, and the betrayal hiding in his files would destroy everything she thought she knew. If you're already feeling this story in your chest, hit subscribe now. Because when the truth comes out, you're going to want to be here. Don't be the one who misses what happens next. The SUV stopped at iron gates that opened without a sound. Beyond them, the mansion waited, 40 rooms of silence, and a man who hadn't let anyone touch him in 3 years. Reverie stepped out of the car and felt the weight of her decision settle onto her shoulders like a sentence. She had no idea that 7 days from now, she would burn this bridge herself. The mansion swallowed her whole. 40 rooms, marble floors that threw her footsteps back at her like accusations, and a housekeeper whose eyes held warnings she refused to speak aloud. Constance Fairweather met her at the front door with a clipboard and a spine made of iron. 63 years old, silver hair pinned back so tight it seemed painful, lips pressed into a line that had probably never curved into a smile. Mrs. Crane. The title sounded like a test. Welcome to Mercer Island. I am the head of household staff. You will address me as Constance. No handshake, no warmth, just rules delivered like military orders. Mr. Crane does not like to be seen. You will dine alone. You will sleep in the East Wing. He will summon you when he is ready. Constance's eyes bore into hers. Do not wander. Do not ask questions. Do not expect kindness. Reverie followed her through corridors lined with portraits of Crane ancestors. Men with cold eyes and women with colder smiles. Generations of wealth staring down at the poor girl from Rainier Valley who had sold herself to join their bloodline. Her bedroom was larger than her entire childhood apartment. A 4-poster bed with silk sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. A private bathroom with a tub deep enough to swim in. Fresh flowers on the nightstand, white roses that smelled like a funeral. The closet was full of clothes in her exact size. Designer labels, soft fabrics, things she'd only ever touched while folding them in hotel laundry rooms. Someone had done their research. Someone had measured her life and prepared a golden cage to fit. 6 days passed like 6 years. Reverie existed in isolation, a ghost haunting a house full of ghosts. Meals arrived on silver trays at precise intervals. Breakfast at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. The food was exquisite. She couldn't taste any of it. She walked gardens she was forbidden to explore fully, always feeling eyes on her back. She read books from a library with locked sections. She stared at walls and wondered what kind of man could live in this silence. She never saw him. But every night, she heard him. The soft whir of wheelchair wheels on hardwood floors, moving through distant hallways at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. The low murmur of his voice during conference calls, words indistinct through walls that kept his secrets. Once, she heard glass shatter somewhere in the West Wing. The crash was followed by silence so heavy it pressed against her chest like a hand. She imagined him in the dark, broken, raging, monstrous. And her body responded before her mind could stop it. Fear and curiosity tangled together into something she didn't have a name for. Each night, she lay awake knowing he was somewhere in this house. Close enough to hear, too far to see. Once, near midnight, she swore she heard the wheelchair pause outside her door. Her breath caught, her skin prickled with something that wasn't quite fear. She waited for a knock that didn't come. Afterward, she was ashamed of her disappointment. She was supposed to dread him. She was supposed to be counting down the days until her contract was complete. Instead, she was aching with anticipation she couldn't explain. On the 4th day, she found the photograph. The library had a back room filled with old books and older dust. A drawer that hadn't been opened in years. Inside, a framed photograph lying face down. She turned it over and felt her breath leave her body. Thaddeus Crane before the accident. Standing tall at an equestrian event, trophy in hand, smile bright enough to blind. He wore riding clothes that fit like they'd been sewn onto his body. His posture spoke of Olympic training. His confidence spoke of Harvard. His face spoke of the kind of beauty that made people stop mid-sentence just to stare. This was the man they called the beast of Mercer Island. This golden prince with the world at his feet. She traced the glass with her fingertip, trying to reconcile this image with the sounds she heard at night. The wheelchair, the breaking glass, the heavy silence of a man at war with his own existence. What happened to you? She thought. What did the world do to make you hide? The photograph cracked something open inside her. She'd been building walls, preparing to feel nothing when he finally summoned her. But now she saw him as human for the first time. And that was more dangerous than seeing him as a monster. Have you ever waited for something you dreaded and wanted in equal measure? That feeling of your heart beating too fast, not knowing if you're running towards something or away from it. Tell me in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone in this. On the 7th night, Constance appeared at her door. The housekeeper's face was unreadable. In her arms, she carried a white nightgown folded with precision. 3 words that stopped Revery's heart. He is ready. If you're not subscribed yet, you need to ask yourself why. This story is about to change completely. Don't be the person who walks away right before everything falls apart. The walk to the West Wing felt like a funeral march. Every step echoed against marble. Every breath felt borrowed. And somewhere ahead, behind a heavy oak door, a man who hadn't touched another human being in 3 years was waiting to touch her. Reverie followed Constance through passages that grew darker with each turn. The East Wing was all modern renovation. Clean lines, bright lights, fresh paint. The West Wing was the original mansion. Stone walls, narrow windows, the kind of architecture that remembered older, harder times. Portraits disappeared. The walls went bare. She felt the house pressing closer, funneling her towards something inevitable. Constance stopped at double doors, oak, heavy, fitted with iron handles that looked centuries old. She didn't knock, didn't enter, just stepped aside. Whatever happens in that room is between you and Mr. Crane. Her voice carried no sympathy. I suggest you remember that you signed a contract. Then she was gone, footsteps retreating down the dark corridor, leaving Reverie alone with her hammering heart. She pushed open the door, expecting horror. What she found was warmth. The master suite was nothing like the cold mansion that housed it. A fireplace blazed against the far wall, casting dancing shadows across shelves lined with books. Thick rugs covered the floor. The air smelled of cedar and something else, something masculine and clean. And there, by the fire, sat Thaddeus Crane, not hidden, not lurking in shadow, fully illuminated for the first time since the accident. He was devastatingly handsome. The photograph hadn't lied, but it hadn't told the whole truth either. His cheekbones were sharp enough to cut. His dark, wavy hair was streaked with silver at the temples now. Premature, probably from trauma. His jaw could have been carved from marble. But it was his eyes that stopped her at the threshold. Gray. Deep. The color of a winter storm rolling in over the Pacific. And red-rimmed, like he'd been crying, or not sleeping, or both. His hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair so hard his knuckles had gone white. Scars ran along his neck, disappearing beneath his collar, evidence of the night that stole everything from him. He didn't speak at first, just watched her the way she'd watched the photograph, searching for something he wasn't sure he'd find. Then his voice came, rough like gravel wrapped in velvet. I know what you are thinking. She didn't move. You are thinking I am a monster who bought a woman because no one would ever want a broken man. His wheelchair moved forward an inch, then another. You are thinking I will hurt you, use you, throw you away when I have what I need." He stopped an arm's length from her, close enough that she could see the tremor in his hands. "But I need you to understand something before we do this." His voice cracked on the next words. "I have not been touched by another human being in 3 years. Not because I could not pay for it, but because I could not bear the pity in their eyes." He looked up at her, and she saw it, the raw wound beneath the wealthy exterior. "You looked at me just now, and I did not see pity. I saw fear, yes, but also something else." His head tilted slightly. Curiosity. Maybe even defiance. "And that is more than anyone has given me since I woke up in that hospital bed alone." The question came without warning. "When was the last time someone took care of you, Reverie?" She didn't have an answer. The question itself was so foreign it took her a moment to understand what he was asking. No one had taken care of her, not since her father died when she was 12. Since then, she'd been the caretaker, the provider, the one who held everything together while her mother fell apart. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe never." Something shifted in his eyes, something that looked like recognition. "Because before I touch you, I want to know who you are. And I want you to know that whatever happens in this room, I will never let anyone hurt you again." He paused. "Including myself." They talked until 3 in the morning. She didn't mean to tell him everything, but once she started, she couldn't stop. She told him about her mother's diagnosis, the 3 jobs, the nursing degree she'd abandoned because she couldn't afford both tuition and rent, the invisibility of being poor in a city where billionaires built glass towers and never looked down. He told her about the accident, rain-slicked highway outside Tacoma, headlights coming too fast, the impact that flipped his car 3 times before it stopped. He told her about Margot, his fiancée, the woman in the passenger seat who died in his arms while they waited for an ambulance that came too late. He told her about the guilt that had calcified his heart, the walls he'd built. The 3 years of silence because he couldn't bear to feel anything at all. "I watched her bleed out," he said, voice hollow. "And I couldn't do anything. Couldn't move, couldn't save her." His hands clenched. "Some days I think I died in that car too. I just didn't have the decency to stop breathing." When she finally went to him, it wasn't because of paperwork. It wasn't because of the contract or the debt or the threat of losing everything. It was because she saw a man drowning in loneliness. And she recognized that drowning because she'd been doing it her entire life. He didn't grab her, didn't demand. He asked permission for everything, and his hands trembled when he touched her. "Is this okay?" His fingers brushed her shoulder, sliding the nightgown strap an inch lower. "Yes." "And this?" His palm against her waist, warm through silk. "Yes." He was achingly gentle, patient in a way she didn't know men could be. For Reverie, the pain of her first time was less than the pain of being truly seen, of having someone look at her like she mattered. Afterward, she cried. Not from hurt, not from regret, but from the overwhelming intimacy of being held by someone who understood loneliness. He didn't ask why she was crying. He just held her closer and whispered against her hair, "I won't break you. I promise." He asked her when the last time was that someone took care of her, and she couldn't remember. Comment below. When was the last time someone truly took care of you? I'm curious. Your story matters to this family. She fell asleep wrapped in his arms, feeling something close to peace for the first time in years. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, you're about to miss the moment everything changes. This story isn't going where you think it is. Stay with me. But when morning came, she would find a folder on his desk that turned everything to ash, and the name at the bottom would destroy her. Morning light cut through the bedroom like a blade. Reverie woke wrapped in warmth she hadn't felt in years. Thaddeus slept beside her, his face unguarded, almost boyish. The hard lines softened by rest, the scars somehow less severe in daylight. She didn't want to move, didn't want to break whatever fragile thing had formed in the dark. His arm was draped across her waist, holding her like something precious, and part of her wanted to stay in that moment forever. But something on his desk caught her eye. A folder, manila, thick with papers. And on the tab, written in black ink, Thornton Investigation, her name. On his desk, in a file that looked like it had been read 100 times. Curiosity pulled her from the bed. She moved carefully, sliding from beneath his arm, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. She shouldn't look, she knew that. But she opened it anyway. The first document made her knees buckle. Account statement. Marcus Thornton debt status. Paid in full date of settlement, March 15th, 5 years ago. Payment source, anonymous trust, 5 years ago. Her father's debt, the $400,000 that had brought those lawyers to her door, had been paid off 5 years ago. There was no debt. There never had been. The lawyers had lied. The deadline was fake. The entire threat that forced her to sign that contract was built on nothing. The second document twisted the knife. Internal memo. Crane Maritime Holdings, rearranged marriage proposal recipient, Thaddeus Crane. Mr. Crane has formally declined participation in the arranged marriage proposal. He has requested that alternative methods be explored for addressing the succession issue. Thaddeus had refused. He hadn't wanted this marriage. Someone had forced him into it, the same way they'd forced her. The memo was dated 2 months before the lawyers showed up at her door. The third document shattered her world. Surveillance report. Subject Reverie. Thornton observation period. March through August. Monitored activities. Work schedule at Cascade Diner. Meridian Hotel housekeeping shifts. Catering assignments. Seattle General Hospital visits. Residential patterns. They'd been watching her. For 6 months before the lawyers ever knocked on her door, someone had been tracking her every move. Her work, her routine, her mother's hospital appointments. She flipped to the final page, hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the paper. At the bottom, highlighted in red, 2 names. Delphine Thornton plus Westbrook. Crane joint operation, initiated March, her mother. Her mother's name was on the document. Working in partnership with someone named Westbrook Crane. Reverie stared at the words until they blurred. Her mother, the woman she'd sold her body to save, had orchestrated this, had watched her daughter be surveilled for months, had manufactured the debt, the threat, the contract, had sold her own child to destroy a man she'd never met. Behind her, Thaddeus stirred. His hand reached across the sheets, searching for her warmth. His voice came soft with sleep. Reverie. The tenderness gutted her. Hours ago, he had been inside her, whispering promises against her skin. He had held her while she cried. He had asked permission for everything. And she was a knife aimed at his heart. A weapon he didn't know was already cutting him. Her mother sold her to destroy the only man who'd ever been gentle with her. And Reverie has 60 seconds to hide what she knows before he opens his eyes. Subscribe now, because when Thaddeus learns the truth, Seattle will burn. If you leave now, you'll never forgive yourself for what you missed. She shoved the folder back, forced her face into softness, turned with a smile that felt like glass breaking behind her teeth. Good morning. The lie tasted like poison on her tongue. Come back to bed. His voice was rough, warm, full of something she didn't deserve. She walked to him, climbed beneath the sheets, let him pull her close. His lips brushed her forehead. Did you sleep? A little. You feel tense. His hand traced her spine. What's wrong? Everything. Everything is wrong. Nothing, she whispered. Just adjusting. He accepted the lie because he wanted to believe it. Because he wanted this fragile, impossible thing between them to be real. And so did she. That was the worst part. She wanted it to be real, even though she knew it was built on her mother's betrayal and her own silence. Would you expose your own mother to protect a man you just met? That's the question Reverie is facing right now. Tell me what you would do. I need to know. Reverie? His voice, rough with sleep, warm with something that might have been affection. She turned, arranged her face into softness, and walked back to his bed carrying secrets heavy enough to drown them both. I'm here, she said. But she had never felt further away. Reverie spent the next week wearing two faces. One smiled at Thaddeus across breakfast tables and reached for him in the dark. The other spent every stolen moment searching for evidence, trying to understand the scope of the betrayal she'd been born into. She was careful. Constance watched everything, every phone call, every wandering step, every glance toward doors that were supposed to stay closed. But Reverie had spent her life being invisible. She knew how to move without being noticed. During Thaddeus's afternoon business calls, she used the library computer. She searched for Westbrook Crane and found the brother Thaddeus never mentioned, younger by 5 years. Handsome in a different way, polished where Thaddeus was raw, smooth where Thaddeus was scarred. Westbrook ran the operational side of Crane Maritime Holdings. He sat on the board. He controlled the day-to-day decisions while Thaddeus retreated into silence and shadow. And according to the financial documents she found buried in an old server backup, Westbrook had been stealing from the company for years. Small amounts, careful transfers, shell companies in Delaware and the Caymans. Nothing that would trigger an audit unless someone knew exactly where to look. He was building something. A war chest. Money that couldn't be traced back to him. Her mother's role came into focus piece by piece. Delphine Thornton had worked for the Crane family 24 years ago. A maid, household staff. The kind of invisible labor that wealthy people forgot existed until something went wrong. There were references to an NDA, a settlement, something that happened in the house that resulted in her mother being quietly removed with enough money to stay quiet. What did they do to you? Reverie wondered, what made you hate them enough to sacrifice your own daughter? But knowing the reason didn't make the betrayal hurt less. She realized the truth on day 3. To protect Thaddeus, she needed to get closer. She needed access to information that only a trusted wife would see. She needed to understand the full scope of what Westbrook was planning. And that meant deeper intimacy with a man she was actively deceiving. She went to him that night. He was in his study, surrounded by papers, rubbing his eyes with exhaustion. The business of running an empire didn't stop just because the emperor was broken. She knocked softly on the open door. He looked up, and his face transformed. Hard lines softening, walls dropping for just a moment. You should be asleep, he said. So should you. She crossed the room and knelt beside his wheelchair, took his hand. placed it against her cheek. You don't have to carry everything alone. He stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language, like no one had said those words to him in years. Maybe no one had. What followed was slower than their first time, more intentional. She learned his body, the places where sensation remained sharp, the places where nerves had been severed. She discovered the ways he'd adapted to feel pleasure differently, the patience his new limitations required. His vulnerability in those moments was almost unbearable. He let her lead, let her discover him, and the trust in his eyes made her betrayal feel like a knife in her own chest. Afterward, he held her face in his hands. I don't know what I did to deserve you walking through my door. She kissed him so he couldn't see her cry. Have you ever lied to protect someone, knowing the truth would hurt them more? That weight you carry every day, pretending everything is fine, I see you. Comment below if you've been there. Each night she spent in his arms deepened her guilt. She was falling for the man she'd been sent to destroy, and every tender moment made the inevitable destruction more unbearable. She told herself she was protecting him, told herself the lies were necessary until she could find proof, until she could expose Westbrook and save them both. But the truth was simpler and more shameful. She was falling in love with him, and she had no idea how to stop. The knock came during dinner on day 12. Constance appeared in the dining room doorway with an expression that bordered on displeasure. Mr. Westbrook Crane is here. He says it's a family matter. Thaddeus's jaw tightened. Something flickered in his eyes. Not surprise, but something closer to resignation. Send him in. Revery's heart stopped. Westbrook Crane walked into the dining room like he owned it. Younger than Thaddeus, yes, but with none of the damage. No wheelchair, no scars, no shadows in his eyes. Just a perfect suit, a perfect smile, and the easy confidence of a man who had never lost anything that mattered. His eyes found Reverie across the table. And she saw it. Recognition. He knew exactly who she was, knew what she was supposed to be doing in this house, knew every detail of the plan her mother had helped create. His smile widened. Brother. He clasped Thaddeus's shoulder with false warmth. I had to meet the woman who finally thawed the beast of Mercer Island. He turned to Reverie and extended his hand. Westbrook Crane, and you must be the new Mrs. Crane. His grip was too firm, held too long. I've heard so much about you. His eyes said something different. I know exactly who you are. If you're watching this without being subscribed, you're about to miss the moment everything explodes. Westbrook just walked through that door and nothing will ever be the same. Subscribe now or spend the rest of your week wondering what happened next. Westbrook Crane was everything Thaddeus was not. Walking, smiling, oozing charm that felt like oil on skin. He kissed Reverie's hand at dinner and held it a beat too long, his thumb tracing her knuckles while his eyes traced everything else. He arrived without warning, breezing past Constance like he owned the place. And maybe he thought he did. Younger than Thaddeus by 5 years, untouched by tragedy, polished to a shine that made Reverie's skin crawl. Brother. Westbrook clasped Thaddeus's shoulder with false warmth that didn't reach his eyes. You look rested. Marriage must agree with you. Thaddeus's jaw tightened, but he didn't take the bait. You should have called ahead. And missed the surprise on your face? Never. Westbrook turned to Reverie, his smile widening. Besides, I had to meet the woman who finally thawed the beast of Mercer Island. The way he said it made her feel like prey. Dinner was a battlefield disguised as a meal. 3 place settings in the formal dining room. Crystal glasses, silver cutlery, tension thick enough to cut with the steak knives. Westbrook made conversation that felt like reconnaissance. Every question had teeth beneath it. The board is getting restless, Thad. They wonder if you're still capable. He let the word hang in the air. 3 years is a long time to run a company from the shadows. The company is fine. Is it? Westbrook sipped his wine. The quarterly numbers suggest otherwise. But what do I know? I'm just the one actually showing up to the office. Reverie watched the brothers circle each other like wolves. She catalogued every barb, every subtle jab about the wheelchair, the isolation, the empire Thaddeus had abandoned. Thaddeus endured it all with a clenched jaw and white knuckles. After dinner, Westbrook cornered her near the library. The charm dropped like a mask hitting the floor. Hello, Reverie. His voice was different now. Cold. Knowing. Or should I call you what your mother calls you? Her little insurance policy. Her blood turned to ice. That's right. He stepped closer. I know exactly who you are. I know why you're here. And I know what you're supposed to do. I don't know what you're talking about. Please. His laugh was soft, dangerous. Your mother and I have been planning this for months. The fake debt, the lawyers, the contract. All of it designed to put you exactly where you are right now. In my brother's bed. Making him trust you. He leaned in, close enough that she could smell his cologne. You're supposed to make him fall in love. Make him vulnerable. Make him believe he finally found someone who sees past the wheelchair. His eyes glittered. And then, when he's completely open, he mimed a knife to the heart. You break him, publicly, spectacularly. And while he's destroyed, I take the company. What does my mother get out of this? Revenge. Westbrook's smile turned cruel. For something that happened a long time ago. Something your precious husband's family did to her. Ask her about it sometime, if you live that long. He traced a finger along her jaw, and she jerked away, skin crawling. My brother may have had you first, but don't think that makes you his. You belong to this arrangement. His hand dropped. Play your role, little insurance policy, or your mother dies before the treatment even starts. I'll make one phone call and the funding disappears. She'll be dead in a month. He straightened his jacket like they'd been discussing the weather. I'll see myself out. Give my love to Thaddeus. She had 2 choices. Betray the man who was gentle with her, or betray the mother who raised her. Have you ever been trapped between 2 loyalties? Tell me in the comments, what did you choose? After Westbrook left, Reverie locked herself in her bathroom and shook until her teeth rattled. Rage, fear, the impossible position she was trapped in. Then she noticed something. Her period was late. She counted backward, twice, 3 times. The math didn't change. She drove to a gas station on Aurora Avenue that night while Thaddeus slept. Bought a test with cash. Took it in the bathroom of a coffee shop because she couldn't bear to know the answer in his house. 2 pink lines, 3 weeks. She'd been in the mansion for 3 weeks, and now there was a 3rd heartbeat in this nightmare. The contract demanded an heir, but this baby wasn't a contract. This baby was a complication she couldn't control. She couldn't tell Thaddeus, not while she was lying about everything else. But if Westbrook won, if Thaddeus lost everything, this child would inherit nothing but wreckage. And a terrible thought surfaced. If her mother found out, would Delphine use this too? That night, she went to Thaddeus's bed desperate to feel clean again. He sensed something was wrong. asked her twice if she was okay. But she answered him with her body because she couldn't answer with words. His hands were gentle. His touch was patient. And when he held her afterward, whispering her name into her hair, she felt the weight of every lie crushing her chest. If you've ever felt trapped by circumstances you didn't create, then you understand what Reverie is feeling right now. Subscribe and stay with her, because what she does next will change everything. Reverie stared at those two pink lines until her vision blurred. She was trapped between a mother who sold her, a brother who threatened her, and a husband who trusted her completely. But she was done being a weapon. If they wanted a war, she would give them one. Just not the war they expected. Reverie became a double agent with a secret growing inside her. Every morning, she smiled at Thaddeus. Every night, she planned how to destroy his brother. And every hour in between, she fought the urge to tell him everything, including the life they'd accidentally created. She started feeding Westbrook lies, encrypted messages sent from a burner phone she bought at a convenience store, reports designed to tell him exactly what he wanted to hear. Thaddeus is drinking heavily, making poor decisions. The board should be concerned about his mental state. None of it was true. But Westbrook believed what he wanted to believe. He was so convinced of his own brilliance that he never considered she might be playing him instead. She bought herself time. Now she needed to use it. During Thaddeus's afternoon calls, she searched the mansion's security system. It took her 3 days to figure out the archive function, online tutorials, trial and error, the kind of messy, amateur detective work that wouldn't survive a courtroom, but might survive long enough to matter. She found footage from 6 weeks ago. Westbrook in the mansion's private study, meeting with the same lawyers who delivered her contract. Timestamp: 2 weeks before they showed up at her door. Proof he orchestrated everything. She copied the files to a hidden drive and kept searching. But she was slipping. Thaddeus noticed the changes before she did. She was distracted during conversations, secretive with her phone, distant even when they were tangled together in his sheets. He confronted her gently one evening in the library, his gray eyes searching her face for answers she couldn't give. "You're pulling away. I can feel it." His voice was soft, careful, like he was handling something fragile. "Tell me what's wrong." She should have told him everything. Instead, she kissed him. Their lovemaking became a battleground. She used it to distract him from questions. He used it to anchor her closer. There was desperation now, clutching at each other like they were already mourning what they would lose. She was careful with her body, protective of her stomach in ways she hoped he didn't notice. Afterward, he held her face in his hands, gray eyes searching hers. "Whatever you're running from, run to me instead." She almost broke, almost told him everything: the conspiracy, the pregnancy, the mother who sold her. But she stayed silent, and the silence grew teeth. Have you ever wanted to tell someone the truth but knew it would destroy everything? That weight you carry, I feel it too. Comment below if you've been there. Constance found her in the garden the next morning. The housekeeper's usual coldness was replaced by something harder, more urgent. Her eyes held secrets she'd been keeping for decades. "I've worked for this family for 30 years. Constance's voice was low, meant only for Reverie. "I watched Thaddeus grow from a boy into a man. I saw who visited his father's bedroom when his mother was away." Reverie's breath caught. "And I know exactly who you remind him of." "What are you talking about?" Constance's gaze flickered to the portrait above the fireplace in the great hall. The late patriarch, Cornelius Crane. Ask your mother about the summer of 1999. Ask her why she really wants Thaddeus Crane destroyed. Revery's blood turned to ice. And ask yourself why, of all the women in Seattle, his brother chose you. Constance walked away without another word, leaving Reverie frozen among the roses. The summer of 1999, 25 years ago, the year before she was born. What happened between her mother and this family? What secret was buried so deep that its roots had wrapped around 3 generations? She needed answers, and there was only one person who could give them. Her mother. The mystery of 1999 is about to crack wide open. If you're not subscribed, you're about to miss the revelation that changes everything. Don't let yourself be the one who walked away too soon. Reverie made the trip to Seattle in secret, telling Thaddeus she needed to see a specialist about ongoing fatigue. It wasn't entirely a lie. She was exhausted from deception, from fear, from carrying a child and a conspiracy in the same body. But the real reason for the trip was waiting in a hospital bed at Swedish Medical Center, hooked to machines and IV drips and 20 years of festering hatred. Delphine's private room was paid for by Westbrook's money. The treatment was working. There was color in her mother's cheeks now, strength in her grip when she took Reverie's hand. "Sweetheart," Delphine smiled. "You look tired. Is he wearing you out?" Reverie didn't return the smile. "Tell me about the summer of 1999. The color drained from Delphine's face. "Tell me about Cornelius Crane. Tell me why you really sent me to that house." Silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. "So," Delphine's voice was flat, "you've been talking to Constance." The story came out in pieces. In 1999, Delphine was 23 years old, working as a maid in the Crane household. Pretty, poor, invisible to everyone except the man of the house. Cornelius Crane noticed her. What started as attention, a compliment here, a lingering look there, became an affair that lasted 8 months. He bought her gifts, told her she was special, made her believe he would leave his wife. "I thought he loved me." Delphine's laugh was bitter. "I was young enough to believe that mattered." When Delphine got pregnant, she went to Cornelius expecting happiness. Instead, he fired her on the spot. Security escorted her off the property within the hour. The next day, his lawyers arrived with an NDA, a settlement of $50,000, and a threat. Speak about the affair or the pregnancy, and they would destroy her. She signed because she had no choice. The pregnancy. Reverie's voice shook. "What happened to the pregnancy?" Delphine's eyes met hers. "I kept it, Reverie. I kept you." The room tilted. Cornelius Crane, Thaddeus's father, her father, which meant Thaddeus was her half-brother, which meant the child growing inside her. Reverie grabbed the bed rail to keep from falling. But Delphine wasn't finished. "That's what I believed for 24 years. That's why I wanted the Cranes destroyed. Because they took everything from me and gave me nothing but you." She reached into her bedside drawer and pulled out a folder. But I was wrong. Reverie stared at the papers inside. DNA results. Laboratory seals. I had this done 6 months ago, when I started planning all this. I wanted ammunition. Delphine's voice went cold. "Cornelius Crane wasn't your father. Your father was the groundskeeper I slept with to make Cornelius jealous. A man named Thomas Fuentes, who went back to Guatemala before I even knew I was pregnant." Relief hit Reverie so hard she nearly vomited. Not related. Thaddeus wasn't her brother. The baby inside her wasn't. She couldn't finish the thought. Then why? Her voice cracked. If it's not about blood, why send me to destroy Thaddeus? Delphine's face hardened into something Reverie didn't recognize. Because the Cranes ruined my life over a lie. They treated me like garbage to protect a family name that was never even at risk. They threw me away like trash and never looked back. Her grip tightened on Reverie's hand. I want them to feel what I felt. I want them to have everything they love ripped away. She released her daughter's hand. You were supposed to be my weapon. And instead, you fell in love with him. Her mother traded her for revenge. Her husband trusts her completely. And the housekeeper is counting down to exposure. If you've ever had to choose between family and the truth, subscribe now. You need to see how this ends. Does past trauma justify present cruelty? That's the question Reverie is facing. Tell me what you think in the comments. I want to hear your verdict. Reverie left the hospital with her head spinning and her heart cracked in two. Her mother wasn't dying. Not anymore. Her father wasn't a Crane. And the man she loved wasn't her brother. But none of that changed the fundamental truth. She was still trapped in a war she never asked to fight. Still caught between a mother who used her and a husband who might never trust her again. She drove back to Mercer Island with a plan forming in her mind. But when she arrived, Thaddeus was waiting at the door, and his face told her everything she needed to know. We need to talk, he said. About Westbrook, and about your mother. Thaddeus's eyes were ice. In his hand was a folder, the same folder she'd found weeks ago, the one marked Thornton Investigation. But there were new pages now. Pages with her fingerprints. Pages showing her midnight searches through the security archives. How long have you known? He laid out everything his investigators had found. Her fingerprints on the original folder, time-stamped the morning after their first night together. Security footage of her copying files in the dead of night. Screenshots of encrypted messages sent from a phone she'd tried to hide. And the message that damned her completely. A recovered text to an unknown number. He trusts me completely, moving forward with Phase 2. That message was to my brother. Thaddeus's voice was controlled, which made it worse. Wasn't it? Yes. But it's not what you think. Not what I think. His laugh was broken glass. I think you came into my house wearing innocence like a costume. I think you let me touch you while reporting back to the people trying to destroy me. Thaddeus, I let you in. His voice cracked. I gave you pieces of myself I thought were dead. I held you while you cried. And the whole time, he couldn't finish. The silence said everything. I didn't know. Reverie stepped toward him, desperate. When I came here, I thought the debt was real. I thought I was saving my mother. I didn't find out about Westbrook until the morning after you let me inside you. The words landed like a slap. You knew for weeks, Reverie. Weeks. You knew my brother was using you to destroy me, and you said nothing. Every meal, every conversation, every time you came to my bed. I was protecting you. Protecting me? He wheeled backward, putting distance between them. You were the threat. You are the threat. She didn't deny it. Yes, I knew, and I stayed. Why? To finish the job? To save you. He laughed, a terrible, hollow sound that echoed off the marble walls. I was feeding Westbrook false information. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. Buying time while I gathered evidence against him. Look. She showed him the security footage, Westbrook with the lawyers, the timestamps, the proof of everything. He orchestrated the fake debt, the contract, me. He's been embezzling from Crane Maritime for years, building resources to take you down. Thaddeus studied the footage, his expression unreadable. And your mother? Was used the same way I was. She wanted revenge for something your father did to her decades ago. But she didn't know Westbrook's real endgame. Silence stretched between them. Even if everything you're saying is true? His voice was quiet now, which was somehow worse than the shouting. You still lied to me. Every day, every night, every time you touched me. I know. Then why should I believe anything you say now? She had no answer that would satisfy him. No words that could undo the damage. I can't make you trust me again, but I can prove I'm telling the truth. Just give me time. Time. He shook his head. Get out of my house. Go back to your mother and my brother and whoever else is pulling your strings. I want you gone by morning. She didn't move. I'm not leaving. Excuse me? I'm not leaving until you hear the whole truth. About what your brother is really planning, about what I did to stop it, and about... Her hand moved to her stomach without her permission. His eyes followed the movement. Narrowed. About what? Before she could answer, alarms screamed through the mansion. Red lights strobing, security feeds activating. Constance rushing into the room with a face drained of color. Police at the gate. They have a warrant. On the security monitor, Reverie saw him, Westbrook Crane, standing beside the officers, smiling like he'd already won. We've all tried to convince someone we've changed, but sometimes the damage runs too deep. Have you ever lost someone's trust and fought to get it back? Tell me your story. Even in rage, their bodies remembered. When Thaddeus grabbed her arm to push her toward the door, she felt the heat between them, saw his jaw clench with something more than anger. Don't touch me, she whispered, but she didn't pull away. Then stop making me want to, he growled back. The words hung between them, charged, painful, impossible. Then the front doors crashed open. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, ask yourself, do you really want to miss what happens next? The police are at the door. Westbrook is smiling, and Thaddeus is about to lose everything. Subscribe now. Through the security monitor, Westbrook's smile widened as officers flooded through the front entrance. And then came the words that stopped Reverie's heart. Thaddeus Crane, you are under arrest for the murder of Margot Ellison, the fiancée who died in the accident 3 years ago. The woman Thaddeus had been trying to save. The death that Westbrook was now pinning on his own brother. Chaos consumed the mansion. Police flooded through the front door, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Thaddeus was dragged from his wheelchair and forced onto the marble floor while Reverie screamed, and security held her back. She watched them handcuff the man she loved, the man she'd betrayed, and she couldn't do a single thing to stop it. 12 officers in tactical gear treated Thaddeus like a violent criminal. They didn't care about the wheelchair, didn't care about his protests or his lawyers or his inability to flee. They cuffed his hands behind his back and lifted him like cargo. His eyes found Reverie's across the chaos. She couldn't read what was in them. Accusation, desperation, goodbye. Detective Oyelaran read the charges as they loaded him into a transport van. Murder in the first degree. Margot Ellison. New evidence has surfaced. Doctored accident reports, manipulated witness statements. A testimony claiming you cut the brake lines yourself. That's insane. Thaddeus's voice was steady despite the handcuffs. I loved her. I tried to save her. Tell it to the jury. The van doors slammed shut. The police left, The lawyers left. Thaddeus left in handcuffs. Reverie stood in the foyer, alone except for Constance. The housekeeper's face was gray, aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "Mr. Zerty, Westbrook's people will be here within the hour to secure the property." Her voice was hollow. "I suggest you gather anything you want to keep." Westbrook didn't wait an hour. He strolled through the front door 30 minutes later, flanked by his own security team. New ownership taking possession. Well. He surveyed the mansion like he'd just won a trophy. The house is finally under proper management. He found Reverie in the library, clutching the files she'd hidden. "You were supposed to break him emotionally. I'll admit, the seduction was a nice touch." His smile was poison. "But this works too. Thanks for the distraction. I have a proposition." He circled her like a shark. Option 1. Walk away with nothing. Your mother's treatment stops tonight. You disappear and never speak of the Crane family again. He stopped in front of her. Option 2. Testify against Thaddeus. Confirm your marriage was a sham. Tell the court he was unstable, violent, capable of murder. And what do I get? $5 million. Immunity from any charges. He tilted his head. It's really not a difficult choice, Reverie. He's done. The question is whether you go down with him. Her mother will die without treatment. The man she loves is behind bars. And the monster who orchestrated everything just offered her $5 million to testify against an innocent man. Subscribe now, because the choice she makes next will haunt you. No. The word came out steady despite her shaking hands. Westbrook's smile faltered. Excuse me? I said no. I won't testify against him. I won't help you steal his company. And I won't let you win. His charm evaporated like morning fog. He backed her against the library wall, close enough that she could smell his cologne and his cruelty. Your mother will die, Reverie. Slowly, painfully. And you'll know it was because you chose a cripple over your own blood. She met his eyes without flinching. My mother sold me to you. She's not my blood anymore. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe respect. Brave. Stupid, but brave. Would you save your mother if it meant destroying an innocent man? That's the choice Reverie just made. Tell me in the comments. Did she choose right? Westbrook's closeness made her skin crawl. She thought of Thaddeus's gentle hands, the way he asked permission for everything. The contrast made her nauseous. Predators came in many forms. Some wore wheelchairs and scars. Others wore designer suits and perfect smiles. She knew which one was the real monster. She pushed past Westbrook and walked out of the mansion she'd entered as a prisoner. No money, no allies, no time. But she had something Westbrook didn't expect. Evidence he didn't know she'd copied. And she had one name in her phone that might change everything. Lenora Vance, Seattle Independent, the journalist who'd been investigating the Crane family for years. The voicemail had said, "If you have a story about the Cranes, call me anytime." Reverie stepped into the rain and pressed dial. The man she loves is in jail for a murder he didn't commit. The evidence that could save him is on her phone. And the only person who might help is a stranger who hates everything the Crane name represents. If you leave now, you'll never know if she saves him. Stay with me. Stay with this family. Lenora Vance worked out of a cramped apartment in Fremont, surrounded by corkboards covered in red string and photographs connected by thumbtacks. When Reverie walked in, soaking wet and desperate, Lenora laughed. The bought bride. I was wondering when you'd show up. Lenora was 47 years old, chain-smoking, brilliant, and utterly unimpressed by wealth or status. Her apartment looked like a crime scene investigation had exploded across every wall. Newspaper clippings, court documents, photographs of men in expensive suits shaking hands with politicians. And in the center of one corkboard, circled in red marker, Westbrook Crane. I've been investigating the Crane family for 6 years. Lenora lit another cigarette without offering one. Westbrook is a snake who's been waiting for his brother to die since the day of that accident. You know about the accident? I know Margot Ellison's death was convenient for a lot of people. Lenora's eyes narrowed through the smoke. I've always thought there was more to it. I just never had proof. Reverie pulled out her phone. What if I told you I have proof? She showed Lenora everything. The security footage of Westbrook meeting with the lawyers. The financial records showing years of embezzlement. The timeline of the conspiracy that put her in Thaddeus's bed. Lenora's eyes widened as she scrolled through the files. This is actually usable. She looked up. Where did you get this? I was supposed to be their inside woman. Reverie met her gaze without flinching. I decided to go freelance. For the first time, something like respect flickered across Lenora's face. All right, bought bride, you have my attention. Together, they pieced together what really happened 3 years ago. The accident that killed Margot and put Thaddeus in a wheelchair wasn't random. Westbrook had hired someone to tamper with the car, cut the brake lines just enough that they'd fail on a rainy highway. But the plan went wrong. Thaddeus was supposed to die. He was the target. Margot was just supposed to be collateral damage that made it look like a tragic accident. Instead, Thaddeus survived. Margot didn't. He's been waiting for another opportunity ever since, Lenora said. The marriage scheme was Plan B. Destroy Thaddeus emotionally, take the company through the family bylaws. And if that didn't work, frame him for murder. Exactly. To prove Westbrook framed Thaddeus, they needed 2 things. The original accident report, not the doctored version the police had, but the real one that showed evidence of tampering. And testimony from the witness Westbrook had paid to lie. I know where both might be, Lenora said. Westbrook's private office in the Crane Maritime building downtown. He keeps physical copies of everything incriminating. Arrogant bastard thinks no one would ever dare come for him. Then that's where we go. Lenora raised an eyebrow. You're still technically Thaddeus's wife. You have legal access to Crane properties. And you have the equipment to receive files remotely. I also have common sense. Lenora stubbed out her cigarette. If we get caught, we both go to prison. Reverie thought about Thaddeus in a cell. Thought about the baby growing inside her. Thought about Westbrook's smile as police dragged his brother away. The alternative is watching an innocent man get convicted of murder. Lenora studied her for a long moment. All right, bought bride. Let's go steal some evidence. Sometimes the only people who believe you are the ones who've been burned by the same fire. Have you ever found an ally in an unexpected place? Drop your story below. I want to hear it. They spent the night preparing. Lenora taught her how to use recording devices small enough to hide in a pocket, how to transfer files to an encrypted server, how to look natural while doing something that could land her in prison for 20 years. Through it all, Reverie's mind kept drifting back to Thaddeus. Their last night together before everything shattered. His voice in the dark, rough with emotion. If I lost you, I'd let the ocean take me. She carried those words like armor now. Like a promise she refused to let Westbrook break. Would you trust a stranger to help you save someone you love? That's the gamble Reverie is making. Comment below. Would you take that risk? They entered the Crane Maritime building at 2 a.m. Reverie's wife credentials bypassed the main security. Lenora waited outside with a laptop, ready to receive whatever Reverie could find. The plan was simple. In, copy, out. 20 minutes maximum. Reverie took the elevator to the executive floor. Walked down a hallway lined with portraits of Crane ancestors. Stopped at the door marked Westbrook Crane, Chief Operating Officer. She used her access card. The door clicked open. She stepped inside and found Westbrook waiting for her. He sat behind his desk, feet up, smile wide. Security guards flanked the exits, and standing beside him, looking healthier than she had in months, was her mother. "Hello, sweetheart," Delphine said. "You look surprised to see me. If you leave now, you'll miss the moment everything explodes. Mother against daughter. Truth against lies. Subscribe and stay, because this family needs you to see what happens next." Delphine Thornton looked healthier than she had in months. The treatment was working. Westbrook had kept his end of the bargain. Her cheeks had color, her posture had strength, and her smile had the sharp edge of a woman who had finally won. "Hello, sweetheart," Delphine said. "You look surprised to see me." Westbrook's grin was triumphant. "Did you really think I wouldn't have people watching Lenora Vance? She's been a thorn in my side for years." He gestured to the security guards blocking every exit. "The moment you contacted her, I knew exactly what you were planning." Reverie's heart hammered against her ribs. Her phone was still recording in her pocket, transmitting everything to Lenora's backup device. She just needed to keep them talking. "You set a trap." "I set a dozen traps. You walked into this one." Westbrook leaned back in his chair. "Your mother was kind enough to help." Delphine stepped forward, and Reverie saw her clearly for the first time. Not a desperate, dying woman, not a victim of circumstance. A calculated survivor who had been playing chess while Reverie thought they were playing checkers. "I wasn't dying, Reverie?" Delphine's voice was matter-of-fact. "Well, I was, but not as fast as I let you believe. The severity was exaggerated. The urgency was manufactured. You lied to me. I motivated you. You were always too good, too soft." Her mother's eyes were cold. "You needed a push to do what had to be done." The full picture came into focus like a photograph developing in acid. Delphine had handled the emotional manipulation, the fake medical crisis, the desperate daughter willing to do anything. Westbrook had handled the logistics, the manufactured debt, the contract, the surveillance. "We've been planning this for 2 years, Delphine said. "Since before I even got sick. The cancer was just convenient timing." 2 years. Her mother had been planning to sell her for 2 years. Your mother is alive. Your future is secure. Westbrook spread his hands. All you have to do is walk away and forget Thaddeus Crane ever existed. Delphine moved closer, reaching for Reverie's hand. "Come home with me, sweetheart. We won. It's over." Reverie looked at her mother. Really looked. At the woman who had raised her, sacrificed for her, held her when she cried as a child, at the woman who had sold her body to a stranger for revenge. "You used me." Her voice was steady despite the trembling in her chest. "You were willing to let me be violated, traumatized, broken, for money and spite." "I did it for us." "No." Reverie pulled her hand away. "You did it for you, and I'm done being your weapon." She just needed a few more minutes of recording. But Delphine saw her hand move toward her pocket. She's recording. Her mother's voice went sharp. Get her phone. Security moved in. Reverie ran. She made it 3 steps before Delphine caught her at the door. Mother and daughter collided, not just physically, but with 21 years of lies and love and betrayal crashing together. They struggled against the doorframe. Reverie tried to break free. Delphine grabbed her arms, her shoulders, trying to reach the phone, and then Reverie twisted to protect her stomach. The movement was instinctive, unconscious. But Delphine noticed. Her hands froze on Reverie's arms. Her eyes dropped to her daughter's midsection. You're pregnant. The words hung in the air like smoke. You're pregnant with his child, aren't you? Something cracked behind Delphine's eyes. For one moment, one heartbeat, she looked like the mother Reverie remembered from childhood. The woman who had worked double shifts to buy her school supplies, who had held her during thunderstorms, who had promised that everything would be okay. Then the moment passed. Westbrook. Delphine's voice was cold again. She's carrying the air. This changes everything. Westbrook's expression shifted to calculation. Does it? He stood slowly from his desk. If the wife disappears, if the pregnancy never comes to term. Reverie saw her death in his eyes, saw the math he was doing, how much easier everything would be if she simply ceased to exist. Police sirens shattered the silence. Lenora hadn't run. The moment she'd seen the trap through the building's security feeds, she'd called for backup. She'd also called the one person who could authorize a raid on Crane Maritime property. Thaddeus's lawyers, armed with emergency injunctions based on the evidence Reverie had already transmitted. Security scattered like roaches in light. Officers flooded through the door. And Westbrook, for all his planning, was caught with recording devices still transmitting his confession to a journalist's laptop 3 blocks away. They arrested him first. Then they arrested Delphine. Conspiracy, fraud, accessory to false imprisonment, attempted murder once the prosecutors reviewed the recordings. Delphine didn't fight as they put her in handcuffs. She just looked at Reverie with something that might have been pride or might have been hatred. You're more like me than you know. Reverie met her mother's eyes. No. I'm what you could have been if you'd chosen differently. If you've ever had to choose between the family you were born into and the person you're becoming, then you understand this moment. Comment below, have you ever had to walk away from blood to save yourself? As the officers led her mother away, Reverie collapsed against the wall. She'd won. Westbrook was finished. The truth was out. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Come to Seattle General immediately. Thaddeus collapsed in custody. They don't think he'll survive the night. She just saved him from his brother. Now she might lose him anyway. Subscribe, because what happens in that hospital room will break your heart or heal it. You need to be there. Reverie ran through hospital corridors with her mother's scratch marks still bleeding on her arms. She didn't care about the stares, the questions, the security guard who tried to stop her. She shoved past all of it, following signs to the ICU, heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The man she loved was dying. Nothing else mattered. 4th floor, intensive care unit, Seattle General. Thaddeus lay in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed and measured the distance between life and death. A stress-induced cardiac event, the doctors explained, triggered during police interrogation. His body was already compromised from the accident 3 years ago. Weakened heart, damaged organs, systems that had never fully recovered. They didn't know if he would wake up. Reverie took the chair beside his bed. She didn't ask permission, didn't wait for a nurse to tell her visiting hours. She sat down, took his hand in hers, and refused to move. His fingers were cold. His face was pale beneath the oxygen mask. The machines breathed for him in steady, mechanical rhythm. She traced the scars on his knuckles, the ones from the accident, the ones she'd kissed 100 times in the dark. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." For hours, she talked to him in whispers he might never hear. She told him about Westbrook's arrest, about the evidence that would clear his name, about Lenora and the recording and the police flooding through that office door. She told him about her mother, about the choice she'd made, about standing in that hallway and watching Delphine get led away in handcuffs and feeling nothing but relief. "I chose you," she said, voice breaking. "Over my mother, over my freedom, over everything." She pressed her forehead against their joined hands. "Please come back. Please let me prove it wasn't for nothing." Have you ever sat beside someone you loved, begging the universe to let them stay? That helplessness, that desperate hope. I feel it too. Comment if you've been there. A memory surfaced. Their first conversation by the fire. His gray eyes searching her face, his voice rough with disuse, asking a question that cracked her open. "When was the last time someone took care of you?" She'd never answered. She was going to answer now. "You were the first," she whispered to his sleeping face. "The first person who ever asked. The first person who made me feel like I wasn't invisible." Her hand moved to her stomach. "And I need the chance to take care of you back. Both of us do." His lawyers arrived with news. The charges had been dropped. Westbrook's recorded confession, transmitted live to Lenora's laptop, had cleared Thaddeus completely. The original accident report had been recovered from Westbrook's files. Evidence of brake tampering. Financial records showing payment to a mechanic who had since fled the country. Westbrook's fingerprints were all over the planning of Margot's murder. The Crane family's scandal was dominating every news outlet in the Pacific Northwest. But Thaddeus might not live to see justice served. 3 days passed. Reverie didn't leave except to use the bathroom. She slept in the chair beside his bed, ate vending machine food when nurses forced her to. Constance arrived on day 2 with clean clothes and an apology. "I misjudged you." The housekeeper's voice was softer than Reverie had ever heard it. "I thought you were like the others, the people who wanted to use him. I was like the others, at first. But you stayed. I always planned to stay." Constance studied her for a long moment. "I know. That's why I called the lawyers when I saw that recording transmitting. He deserves someone who fights for him. Some battles end with fireworks, others end with silence and a prayer. If you're still here, still hoping, still waiting for him to wake up, you're part of this family now. Stay with us." Day 4, early morning. Gray light filtered through hospital blinds. Machines beeped their steady rhythm. Reverie's head rested on the edge of his bed, her hand still wrapped around his. His fingers twitched. She thought she'd imagined it. Then they twitched again and squeezed. Her head snapped up. His eyes were open. Clouded with confusion at first, then clearing slowly as they found her face. The face of the woman who had been sitting beside him for 4 days. The woman who had chosen him over everything. Reverie. His voice was a rasp, barely audible, destroyed by days of intubation and silence. But it was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. "Why didn't you run?" he whispered. Tears streamed down her face. She couldn't speak. When you had the chance. His hand tightened on hers. Why didn't you run? She had so many answers. About loyalty, about love, about the child growing inside her that he didn't know about yet. But she only said one thing. Because you asked who takes care of me. And I finally found the answer. He's awake. But the hardest conversation is still ahead. Subscribe now. Because what she tells him next will change everything. Thaddeus was awake, but something in him was still broken. Not his body. That was healing, slowly, stubbornly. Physical therapy, medication adjustments, the long, grinding work of recovery. It was his trust that remained shattered. And Reverie understood that no amount of evidence or explanation could rebuild what her silence had destroyed. 2 weeks after his collapse, they moved him to a private recovery suite. The conversations between them were careful now. Polite. Circling the damage like two people walking around broken glass, neither willing to be the first to step on it. She brought him coffee in the mornings, sat with him during physical therapy, slept in the chair beside his bed because she couldn't bear to be anywhere else. But she could feel the distance between them, the questions he wasn't asking, the answers she was terrified to give. He finally asked on a Tuesday afternoon, "You knew from the beginning, from the morning after our first night." His gray eyes held hers without flinching. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was scared." "Of what? Of me? Of losing you?" His laugh was hollow, bitter. "You lost me anyway, didn't you?" She didn't beg, didn't make excuses. "I made choices that hurt you. I can't undo them." "Then what can you do?" "I can tell you what I did with the time my silence bought me." She pulled out her phone, showed him everything she'd gathered. The security footage, the financial records, the communication logs that proved Westbrook had manufactured the entire conspiracy. "While I was lying beside you, I was also building the case that saved your life." She met his eyes. "That doesn't make the lying okay, but it means it wasn't just betrayal." He was quiet for a long time. The silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. "You let me fall in love with you," he said finally, "while knowing my brother put you here." "Yes." "You let me touch you while carrying secrets that could have destroyed me." "Yes." "How am I supposed to forgive that?" She didn't have an answer that would satisfy him. Maybe there wasn't one. "I don't know. But I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to earn it." Have you ever wanted to trust someone but didn't know how? That push and pull between what your heart wants and what your mind remembers. Tell me about it in the comments. She reached into her bag and pulled out the marriage contract, the original document, the one that had brought her to his door, the one that had defined every moment between them from the beginning. "Tear it up." He looked at her confused. "I don't want your money. I don't want the 10 million. I don't want anything the contract promised." "Then what do you want?" "The chance to prove who I really am, without leverage, without obligation, without anything except my word." He took the contract from her hands. For a long moment, he just held it, stared at the signatures at the bottom, hers and his. Two strangers agreeing to a transaction that had somehow become something neither of them expected. Then he tore it in half, and again, until it was confetti in his lap. "There." His voice was rough. "No contract. Now what?" She took a breath. "There's something else you need to know. Something I couldn't tell you before." She took his hand, placed it against her stomach. I'm pregnant. About 12 weeks now. His hand went still against her belly. And it's yours. The silence stretched. She watched his face cycle through emotions she couldn't name. Shock, wonder, fear, and something softer. Something that looked like hope trying to break through walls of hurt. You're, yes. And you've known. Since Westbrook first visited, I wanted to tell you. Every single day, I wanted to tell you. He didn't speak. Instead, he pulled her closer. Carefully, slowly, until her forehead rested against his. I don't know how to trust you, he whispered. But I don't know how to let you go. Would you give her another chance? That's the question Thaddeus is facing. Comment below. I want to know your verdict. His hand remained on her stomach, gentle, reverent, tracing the place where their future was growing. Stay, he said. Not as my contracted wife, not as a mother to my heir, just stay, as someone I'm trying to trust again. And if you can't, his gray eyes met hers, then at least I'll know I tried. And so will our child. She stayed. The hardest part isn't falling in love. It's choosing to stay when trust has been broken. If you've made it this far, you're ready for the ending. Subscribe now. You've earned it. He was already rolling toward her when she showed him the test. Not away. Toward. Some people said Thaddeus Crane bought his wife. They were wrong. She was bought as a weapon. She became his shield, his conscience, his reason to roll toward morning instead of darkness. And on a rainy Seattle evening, 6 months after she first walked through his door, she stood beside him in front of 400 people and prepared to set the record straight. The ballroom at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel glittered with crystal chandeliers and old money. 400 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits. The Crane Foundation's annual charity event, the first in 4 years. The first since the accident that had sent Thaddeus into hiding. Every eye in the room tracked him as he wheeled himself through the entrance. And every eye tracked the woman beside him, hand resting on her visible belly. Chin held high, the bought bride who had become something no one expected. She heard the whispers slithering through the crowd. That's her. The girl who married him for money. I heard she was a maid. Can you imagine? He bought her. Everyone knows it. The word stung, but she didn't flinch. Thaddeus's hand found hers beneath the tablecloth. Squeezed once. Steady. Certain. They're going to talk no matter what. Let them. Easy for you to say. You were born into this. And I spent 3 years hiding from it. His gray eyes met hers. You taught me how to stop hiding. His name was called. Keynote speaker, Thaddeus Crane. 400 people watched the beast of Mercer Island wheel himself onto a stage he'd avoided for 3 years. The room fell silent, waiting, wondering what the reclusive billionaire would say. He didn't talk about business, didn't talk about charity, didn't talk about legacy. He talked about her. I want to tell you about the woman who saved my life. The silence deepened. Not because she was paid to, not because a contract required it, but because she chose to, even when it cost her everything she had left. He told their story, the real one. The debt that wasn't real. The brother who tried to destroy him. The mother who sold her daughter for revenge. And the woman who, instead of completing her mission, burned her entire life down to save a stranger. She walked into my house as a weapon. His voice cracked. She became my home. He looked at her across the ballroom. Reverie Thornton didn't marry me for money. She married me because she was forced to. And she stayed because... He paused. I still don't fully understand why, but I'm spending the rest of my life finding out. The applause started slowly, then it swelled. And Reverie was crying, and she didn't care who saw. We've all been someone's last choice, but the right person will make you their first. If this moment hit you in the chest, you know what I mean. After the gala, they escaped to the hotel balcony. Seattle glittered below them, rain-washed and bright. The city that had tried to crush them both, the city that had failed. That was terrifying, she admitted. That was necessary. He pulled her onto his lap, something he'd learned to do over the months, accommodating his limitations with her help. She settled against him, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath her palm. You were my first time, Thaddeus. He looked at her, questioning, not just physically. She traced the scars on his neck. You were the first person who made me feel like I mattered. Like I wasn't invisible. You were never invisible. His hand moved to her belly. You were just surrounded by people who refused to see. That night, in a suite overlooking Elliott Bay, they came together as equals for the first time. No contracts, no secrets, no shadows. It was slower than before, more intentional. They'd learned each other's bodies over the months, his limitations, her changes as the pregnancy progressed. He held her like she was precious, but not fragile. She moved with him like they'd been doing this for decades instead of months. Eyes open, breathing matched. Two people who chose each other, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. I love you, she said, the first time she'd said it out loud. I know. His lips brushed her forehead. You proved it a long time ago. Drop a heart in the comments if you were rooting for them from the start. This family sees you. This family appreciates you. 3 months later, their daughter was born. They named her Margot. After the woman Thaddeus couldn't save. After the guilt he'd carried for 3 years. After the ghost that had haunted him until Reverie walked through his door and taught him that survival wasn't the same as living. Baby Margot had her father's gray eyes and her mother's stubborn chin. She was perfect. Reverie visited her mother in prison once. Just once. Delphine sat across the visiting room table, thinner now, harder. The cancer treatment had worked. She would live for years in a cell, which was its own kind of justice. She has your eyes, Reverie said, showing her a photograph. Delphine studied it without expression. She has crane eyes. She has her grandfather's eyes, Thomas Fuentes, the man you actually loved. Something flickered in Delphine's face. Pain, maybe, or regret. But she didn't apologize. Reverie didn't expect her to. Some wounds don't heal. They just scar over. 1 year after the contract was signed, Reverie stood in the bedroom where everything began. The same fireplace, the same shadows, the same view of Puget Sound through rain-streaked windows. She'd walked into this room wearing white silk and terror, a virgin weapon sent to destroy a broken man. Now she stood here as his wife, his partner, the mother of his child. Thaddeus wheeled in behind her, baby Margot asleep in a carrier on his lap. You're thinking about that first night, he said. I'm thinking about how different it could have been. If you'd been cruel, if I'd been weaker. If I'd been cruel, you would have destroyed me, like you were supposed to. And if I'd been weaker, he reached for her hand. You wouldn't be you, and I wouldn't have survived. She was sold to him as a virgin weapon. He was supposed to break her. Instead, he broke his own walls down, and she walked through the rubble to find him. If this story moved you, subscribe now. because next week we're telling the story of a nurse who discovered her patient's identity and realized he was the man who ruined her family 20 years ago. You won't want to miss it. They both loved each other at exactly the same time. And in a world that kept trying to pull them apart, that was the only miracle they needed.